And good afternoon again, Mr. Chairman, Madam Vice Chairman, members of the committee. Delegate Ken Kerr here presenting House Bill 282, Speed Monitoring Systems, Agencies, Statements and Certificates of Violations. So automated speed enforcements are also known as photo radar or speed cameras. These are devices that are used to enforce traffic laws while using fewer law enforcement personnel and resources. These tools allow the state and local governments and law enforcement agencies to remotely capture images of drivers violating traffic laws and issue citations. These citations are civil in nature. So it's widely accepted that speed cameras are effective in saving lives. A 2016 study of speed cameras in Montgomery County found that after about 7.5 years after this program began, the portion of drivers traveling at least 10 miles over the speed limit had declined on streets with speed cameras. The cameras also reduced the likelihood of fatal or severe crashes by 19%. The study concluded that the likelihood of a driver exceeding the speed limit by more than 10 miles per hour on roads where speed cameras were used decreased by 62% compared to similar roads that did not have speed cameras. So the bill that I bring today does not expand the use of speed cameras, which for most of Maryland is restricted to construction zones and school zones. Instead, what it does is it redefines who is qualified to interpret the speed video in order to determine if a violation has occurred. Currently, in addition to being reviewed by the automated speed enforcement system contractor, the citation is then additionally verified and approved by a sworn police officer employed by the Maryland State Police, Maryland Transportation Authority, or a local police department. The reviewing police officer signs a statement on the citation that indicates that the vehicle was being operated in violation and records the infraction. So what we're trying to do here is reduce the amount of time it takes to review this video feed and the cost that it brings to incorporated municipalities that do not have their own police force, yet do have a school zone or a construction zone in them. So I have some witnesses here with me today, and I would like to begin with Bill George of Maryland Municipal League.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members of the committee and Delegate Kerr for bringing this bill. This is an MML priority bill for this year. It will positively impact all of our members. You'll hear from Mayor Michael O'Connor and Chief Bakhorn from the city of Denton, hearing from their perspectives on two municipalities that have police departments. I'm going to talk a little bit briefly about those that don't. One of the biggest hurdles we've heard anecdotally from them is that having to find a benevolent law enforcement agency to take over the review at the final stage is oftentimes the biggest impediment to them implementing a speed camera program. I've heard that some have that in their budget ready to go forward with the speed camera program, but they haven't been able to find a law enforcement agency with which to partner. There are about 70 municipalities in the state without a police agency. 2 currently operate speed camera programs. That's it. It's a very difficult hurdle to find to find a law enforcement agency to take on the review for incidents that take place outside of that law enforcement's jurisdiction. We used language this year with Delegate Kerr's approval to pull from the red light camera language. So right now, the red light cameras are allowed to be reviewed by technicians, not law enforcement officers. And this would standardize some of the camera review with some of the other automated enforcement mechanisms that we have in the state. We've heard past opposition on a bill like this in 2023 had to go back to the legislative intent of this expanding speed cameras statewide in 2009. MML was at the table then with amendments in support of making it a statewide program. And again, in 2014, when there were serious revisions to the program, adding additional safeguards to operating speed cameras within municipalities. It's been 15 years since the program was first authorized. It's been 10 years since they've been severely, and it's time to look at it again and see whether the program is really working for everybody. We think this change will make things better for everybody. Thank you very much.
Lord Mayor.
Mr. Chair, Madam Vice Chair, members of the committee, I certainly appreciate your time and I'm honored to be here before you and ask for a favorable report on House Bill 282. As one of those municipalities that can personally vouch for speed concerns being the number one concern that we hear from our residents about what's going on in their neighborhoods, we're looking for all the available tools at our disposal. I can tell you it would be wonderful if I could place a law enforcement officer in every neighborhood on every street where I have complaints about speeding. As we know across the state, it is simply not a practical solution. And these automated enforcement tools are force multipliers that help our law enforcement officers spend their time where our residents also want them most, which may or may not be doing speed enforcement if there are other tools available. For the last 2 years, we have been one of those municipalities that has engaged in a partnership with the town of Newmarket to provide the professional services that they need in order to conduct a speed camera program on their main street. We will pay police officers as an overtime assignment anywhere from $45 to $60 an hour to undertake this work that we have a part-time speed camera enforcement individual who monitors the administrative side of this program and does the red light camera program in the city of Frederick could certainly be trained to do this as well. If we could reserve those dollars we're now paying in overtime to uniformed law enforcement officers, we would allow them to spend more of their time on the street doing the things that our residents most want them to do in a law enforcement capacity. And that is probably not sitting at a desk reviewing speed camera violations. A trained technician can absolutely do this work and provide a better cost benefit to our shared taxpaying residents. Thank you so much.
Good afternoon. My name is George Bacorn. I'm the Chief of Police for the Town of Denton Police Department. I'm also the Secretary of the Maryland Municipal League Police Executive Association, and I'm here to testify in support of this bill also. I have some personal knowledge with speed camera programs. In 2011, we initiated our program in the town of Denton, and I personally reviewed and approved violations from November of 2011 till September of 2020. On an average year, we reviewed about 900 violations, or I reviewed 900 violations, and that is still going on today. It's time consuming. It's not difficult, but it is time consuming. And with a sworn police officer doing that, it just takes away from other duties that they should be performing in the community, what my community would rather have them doing than sitting in front of a computer reviewing these things on a daily basis. Some of the other things that I kind of equate it to a code violation. These are civil offenses. They're not moving violations. That they kind of relate to a parking citation, if you will, and we don't require sworn law enforcement officers to issue parking citations, rather non-sworn staff that can do that. So I respectfully request a favorable report.
Thank you. We do have a number of questions. Delegate Foley.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Delegate Kerr, I really appreciate the intent of this legislation, but I have a question. So the gentleman from the Maryland Municipal League, I'm sorry, I forgot your name, but he said that we already have this for red light cameras. Well, my question is going to go to what if the ticket is contested? Who is the person responsible? Where's the accountability? Is it some technician or is it a police officer? I never get tickets, but if I did get a ticket, and I wanted to contest it, who would show up on the other side to say that I was wrong? And let me just make a comment about red lights, because I think with red light cameras, it's much clearer from the camera. The light was either red or it wasn't. When you're speeding, it's a little bit more subjective. I won't say subjective, but it could be a little bit grayer, right? In terms of, I wasn't speeding, I was speeding, depending upon what that limit is. So I am concerned about the citizens being able to contest the ticket, and who is it that they, who's responsible, who's accountable for that?
Chief Baker, you think?
Yeah, I can answer that. It would be the technicians, the person reviewing the citation. Right now, it is a police officer that would do that. However, the testimony would be no different than what a parking enforcement officer would do as a non-sworn person issuing a parking ticket that someone wanted to take to court and contest that parking ticket. That would be, the only difference is that it's a sworn officer having to go to court that day. Again, taking away from his duties or her duties, doing other law enforcement duties, rather than just a civilian person that is capable of reviewing these. And just to speak to the grayness, and I think the courts have clearly stated that radar is accurate, and that's all these cameras are, is a radar device attached to a camera when it captures a speed over whatever the threshold is, 12 miles an hour over the speed limit, and it captures an image, actually several images, to show that the vehicle's in motion.
Okay, thank you.
Delegate Ruth.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I thank you so much. I definitely understand the need for this. In my county, there's been a lot of discussion recently about speed cameras. And some people are concerned that they believe that the cameras in some cases are just revenue generators. And so I think knowing that a law enforcement officer is reviewing every one of these gives some people some level of confidence and comfort that, it's actually a genuine concern. I noticed that, so I guess first part of my question is, like, what kind of, if a law enforcement officer is not reviewing it, what kind of safeguards are there for that? And how do we make sure people have confidence in that? And then also I see it says a technician employed by an agency. So this would be somebody employed by the police department, not employed by the contractor that installed the speed camera. Is that correct?
Mayor, do you have the answer to that?
Well, I would say in terms of the information that Delegate Kerr provided in terms of the data that suggests that automated enforcement does reduce fatalities and crashes that cause injury, whether or not they're being reviewed by a civilian or uniformed personnel, that data would stand on its own, that the presence of the automated enforcement itself is having the desired effect of making our roadways safer. And so what we are talking about is an employee of the city of Frederick, someone in our instance who we would control, who would be that individual who would sign off. And we have an existing automated enforcement coordinator who is that individual who goes into court and provides that testimony because they are the expert that has done the review of those citations.
Thank you so much.
Delegate Stein.
Mr. Chair, thank you. Delegate Kerr, I understand the rationale for this, and it seems like there would be substantial cost savings to municipalities. My question is, and to follow up what sort of Delegate Ruth was saying, the technician doesn't seem to be defined, or the training, is it commonly understood among municipalities, who is eligible to be a technician and what type of training they receive?
Mr. George?
Yeah. So Chief Baker may be able to speak to the training that law enforcement officers currently have to go through in order to be to review this type of thing. But yes, that's the understanding, is that this will be a trained technician who receives the same training as the police officers do currently.
Okay.
And an answer?
Yes, that answers.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Delegate Stewart.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have a follow-up question to that for Chief. Is it Bacorn?
Yes.
Yes, Chief Bacorn. So I know that the average police officer in America receives approximately 833 hours of training, basic training. So I imagine in your lifetime, in your career, you've had way more than 1,000 hours of police training, in addition to the training that was just mentioned that the technician would also go through. How many hours of that, more than 1,000 of police training, how many hours of that do you think was dedicated to learning skills that make you uniquely more qualified than a government technician to review photos of cars?
I'm not quite sure I understand. Just if you could.
Yeah, sure. I'll rephrase. How much of your training as a police officer do you think was at all relevant? So much more relevant that we have to have you doing this. How much of that police training, was it 100%? Was it 0%? Was directly relevant to the job of looking at images of cars?
Of looking at images of cars, I would say maybe 5%.
Okay. All right.
In my younger years, when I was a road police officer, I was a radar operator and stopped cars for speeding and things like that. However, for just looking at these and understanding what you're looking at, 0.
Okay.
Because they're the way the systems are designed, you've got 3 images. One is of the tag.
Mm-hmm.
The first one is when it enters the radar beam above the speed limit, and the second one is farther down the road when it captures the second image of the vehicle, the violating vehicle, so that you can see that it's moving. So
So do you have any concern whatsoever that a government bureaucrat would be somehow worse at this job than you were going through the exact same training? Do you have any concern?
In my agency, no.
Thank you.
Delegate Long.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chair. I want to make sure that I'm clear and just not missing this. Excuse me. So would this be at just a position solely dedicated to just reviewing? It would be a new hire that you would bring on board on staff, just a totally new position, or would pay be commensurate to what an officer already receives? Just some of those details.
I think that probably depends on the municipal government. So in the city of Frederick, where we have 600 plus employees and an individual already in a part-time capacity doing this, I know what that position looks like. In a smaller town like Newmarket, which has a much smaller staff, their trained individual could be their town clerk or someone else associated with their local government. So the idea is to expand that capability and give a local government the tools available and allow them in the best ways that they can with their budgets and their personnel to manage a program that the evidence says makes our roads safer.
Got it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, I do not see any further questions for this panel. We do have other favorable witnesses. Sarah Sample from the Maryland Association of Counties and Councilmember Zola Shaw from the City of Rockville. Once again, home of the elementary school the Vice Chair and I went to.
I'll go ahead and start since I'm here. Thank you to the chair. Thank you to members of the committee. My name is Sarah Sample. I'm here on behalf of Maryland Association of Counties, and we are here in support of this bill. This adds flexibility to how we can delegate tasks across our public safety workforce. I don't think anyone on this committee is probably a stranger to the fact that we have a severe workforce shortage when it comes to our public safety officials. And so this would really help us have a lot more utility in terms of how we deal with signing these statements. And so we would certainly urge a favorable report on this. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Chairman Corman and members of the committee. I'm Councilmember Isola Shaw from the City of Rockville. On behalf of the mayor and council, I want to thank Delegate Kerr for sponsoring this important legislation. The mayor and council and the Maryland Municipal League jointly support HB 282 as a 2024 priority. This legislation provides authorization for speed camera images to be reviewed and citations signed off by a trained technician. Current law requires a sworn police officer to sign off on speed camera violations. HB 282 would provide several benefits for local police departments and the communities they serve. The legislation would enhance public safety by freeing up police officers to be deployed in the community and focused on proactive policing and crime prevention. In the current context of increased demand for police services, our staff resources have been strained. HB 282 would help to relieve some of the administrative burdens placed on sworn officers. The legislation would standardize the process for automated traffic enforcement by using the same process that is authorized for the red light camera program, which permits a trained technician to sign off on a violation. HB 282 is smart public policy that would allow police agencies to prioritize core public safety duties, advance transportation equity, and better protect the health and safety of the communities they serve. For these reasons, the City of Rockville urges the committee to provide a favorable report for this legislation. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions for this panel? Okay, thank you both very much. That concludes the bill hearing on HB 282.